Listeners, welcome back to the Magic Story Podcast, your guide to the planes, characters, and stories of the Magic Multiverse. As always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Natalie.
And I'm your other co-host, Harless. And today we're coming to you from a brand new filming set.
Yeah, we attached some mythic equipment to the podcast. It's very exciting.
Yeah, so if you're watching on YouTube, we hope you enjoy. Today, we're here to talk all about Magic Presents Pride, one of our favorite annual events at local game stores. This is a special Commander event held during Pride Month that celebrates community and creativity. Running from June 5th to 14th at participating WPN game stores, this event lets you play in casual games of Commander with your fellow Magic players, but with a twist. Every legal Commander has partner.
So if a card could be your commander, you can pair it up with another legal commander. That means you can show off favorite Magic ships, unite two characters that you adore, or just build something that feels very true to you.
You'll walk away with more than just new friends and good memories. You'll also receive a traditional foil Gilded Lotus promo card with art by Merlin G.G. while supplies last. This promo depicts one of Magic's most famous couples, the fiery planeswalker Chandra and Nissa and the animist Nissa Rivera.
So you can recreate that moment that you see in the artwork with a special someone, and stores will also distribute this special enamel pin of the Gilded Lotus in the artwork. So contact your LGS for details there, and I think we'll be wearing our pins around the office for the foreseeable future.
Oh, absolutely. They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
And a huge reason we are excited for this event is because it unites the story and gameplay of Magic in a very tangible way. And in case you hadn't noticed, Natalie and I really like Magic Story. So we knew we wanted to build a deck for this event specifically. And once we saw the promo art, well, we knew it had to be a deck all about our favorite red-green Gruulfriends, Chandra and Nissa.
Yeah, of course. It had to be Chandra and Nissa. And we've been working on a deck that celebrates the story of Chandra and Nissa, both as the individual characters that they are, as well as our fan favorite pairing. So after digging through our cards and rereading the stories featuring these two characters, we decided to talk to an expert.
And there's one person that came to mind as the premier Chandra and Nissa superfan. And lucky for us, she works in the building. Please welcome award-winning author Arsenault Rivera to the podcast. Kira, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always good to hang out after a long day of playing Magic the Gathering. I see you guys around the building all the time, but for people who don't know me, my name is Arsenault Rivera. I'm a fantasy fiction author, most known for The Tiger's Daughter and its sequels. I've also written for a few other properties here and there, plus Magic fiction. I've written Chandra in most of her appearances since Midnight Hunt. I think there's only one I didn't write.
Yeah, like you are no stranger to Magic and its story, clearly. And having written web fiction for Magic since, I think it was like 2021, which was Midnight Hunt, now that you've joined up with the Wizards full-time, what kind of work are you doing for Magic now?
I'm an associate narrative designer, so my job varies a lot day to day, but the bulk of it involves writing art descriptions and reviewing art. I also help in world building, helping our staff and senior world builders come up with ideas to make our worlds as cool as possible. Art descriptions really boil a lot of that world building down to the most essential elements, the ones that you guys see as players. And as a matter of fact, I'm super excited to talk about my work on...
Hold on. Let's keep us from breaking all of our NDAs, okay?
Yeah.
We'll stay focused on your past work with Chandra and Nissa for today. So,
And then we'll talk to you after.
Yes. You've written several stories that feature these two characters, especially Chandra, who we last saw in the story of Secrets of Strixhaven. And since we're building a deck based on these two characters, we wanted to get your insight as a narrative designer and author of Magic Story.
For this deck, we decided to go with their legendary creatures from Magic Origins. These cards depict Chandra and Nissa before and after their spark ignited. And that's not metaphorical. It shows them before they gained the ability to planeswalk. These cards can transform into planeswalkers, though, which means we'll be building around protecting our planeswalkers, adding counters to them, and ramping into expensive planeswalkers like Chandra Flameshaper.
So for listeners who might not be familiar with Chandra and Nissa,
first of all, where have you been?
Yeah. Time to get caught up. First of all, welcome to the podcast. Second, these are two key characters in modern Magic Story. So Kira, if you were to pitch these characters to like a new player, how would you describe them?
So Chandra Nissa is a fiery mess of a bisexual who acts on whatever her heart tells her to do. And often that's setting things on fire. Not always, but often. Most of the time she's trying to do the right thing, though. Nissa is a thoughtful and patient animist deeply tied to the natural world. Nissa's convictions are just as strong as Chandra's, but she's much quieter about them.
I have to say that's a good description of us.
Yeah. Yeah. You basically described Chandra and Nissa.
We're all experts on the subject here.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. Now, one of my favorite parts of this kind of flavorful deck building is looking not just for cards that fit the theme, but specific versions of those cards. So going into this, we wanted to highlight both Chandra and Nissa's home planes. For Chandra, that's Avishkar, and for Nissa, that's Zendikar.
So considering this is a red-green deck focused on ramping with lands, of course, there are plenty of Zendikar-related cards to choose from. So we've got some of those full art basics from Zendikar Rising, plus some landfall staples like Scoot Swarm, Omnath, Locus of Rage, and Zendikar's Royal. A lot of these cards showcase the primal power of this plane, which Nissa, as we know, is pretty closely tied to.
And like we said, she's a more thoughtful person, but she's tied to the natural world in a way that lets her access the raw power of the elements. What's it like to write and develop a character like this, where there's a whole separate identity beneath the surface?
I actually love writing Nissa, and I hope I get the chance to do it more often. I think she's a fascinating character. With Chandra, the second that she has a thought, she's already acting on it. I mean, what you see is what you get with her. It makes things easy since you don't have to spend a ton of time on the contrast between her inner self and her outer self. But Nissa is all about that contrast, right? She has so many thoughts and so many feelings all the time that it can almost feel painful. And she believes just as fiercely as Chandra does, but Nissa doesn't like to rush. She likes to understand what she's doing and the consequences it might have. Green mana is so focused on growth and community that it often struggles to act quickly. Nissa is the same way. With Nissa, I often have to ask myself, well, yes, that's how I feel, but what am I going to say about it? And what's most important to me about this? It's so important to know where Nissa's thoughts are at any moment. She never reveals them entirely, but she feels them so deeply that they inform everything around her. I think there's plenty even Chandra doesn't know about her, partly because Chandra is always focused on the now, and partly because Nissa simply hasn't articulated it out loud.
Yeah, it's fascinating thinking about the inner lives of these characters, you know, like especially when they undergo these fundamental shifts in their character. I mean, Nissa saw the extreme end of that when she was turned into a Phyrexian and then cured, though she lost her Planeswalker spark in the aftermath of that healing. And then we've seen glimpses of her character following this process, like on cards like Animus Might or Go Forth, which has some great flavor text, and I'll speak to it now. Spark or no, Nissa would always be an explorer.
We've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but I'm really curious how you balance these through lines. Lovingly, you're known for putting these characters through the ringer, but the core tenets of what makes Chandra Chandra or makes Nissa Nissa remain. So how do you make sure these characters feel true to themselves even as their storylines progress and move all over the place?
Me? Put people through the ringer? I have no idea what you're talking about. But more seriously, the relationship between these two is often core to writing them. In March of the Machine, Chandra wanted to save the world, but she also wanted so badly to save Nissa. And confronting her Phyrexianized form was one of the hardest things that she had done. All the more so because Nissa brought up a lot of things in their confrontation that were true. I think that's so interesting about them. Nissa always tells Chandra the truth, even if it isn't the truth that Chandra wants to hear. Chandra is always encouraging Nissa to try something new, even if it isn't something Nissa thinks she can do. They both push each other and make each other more complete. And if you look at March of the Machine, Nissa was so honest with Chandra during her phyresis, and it was the thing that both of them really needed to finally get together. And we got to see some of that develop in Aetherdrift.
Okay, I'll take any chance to talk Aetherdrift. And that was when we really started to see the ramping up of the podcast as well. And it was a great excuse to talk about Chandra and Nissa then. So while Chandra took more of a spotlight in that set, her actions there were fueled by her connection to Nissa. And she goes full throttle, a pun intended, in those stories, which is coincidentally a card she was on and a powerhouse in this deck.
Now, after Nissa lost her spark, Chandra wanted a way to traverse the multiverse with her now girlfriend again, which led her to enter the race in Aetherdrift. Now, the grand prize there, of course, being the Aether Spark, an artificial planeswalker spark that Chandra wanted to give to Nissa, despite Nissa's insistence that she's completely fine without it.
Yeah, and that's the push and pull between what Chandra wants and what Nissa's needs. And this was, in my opinion, one of the most compelling parts of Aether Drift. And it was seriously a very seriously mature way of tackling their relationship. Like, considering that this was the first time we saw them as a full-fledged couple after the Phyrexian invasion. I'm curious, like, how you wanted to frame them in that set.
Well, it's a very simple answer, I think, but it leads interesting places when you break it down and really think about it. I wanted them to be in a real relationship. When I was growing up, so much queer media either ended tragically or ended when they got together. Magic's story is ongoing and has been for years, and that gives us such a lovely opportunity to let these two have a more complicated relationship, and one still filled with love, of course. There's a scene in Aether Drift where they're just cuddling in bed together. It's emblematic of the whole thing to me. They're having this moment together in the thick of the world going a million miles an hour, sometimes literally in Aether Drift, and they're so in love. And Chandra is so focused on her goal of getting the Aether Spark that she hasn't really stopped to ask what Nissa thinks about it. She just sort of assumed that Nissa wants her to enter into this death race for a spark, and that Nissa will think it's romantic. But Nissa wants to feel like herself again, and she doesn't want Chandra to get hurt. They talk about it, but only a little. Chandra doesn't quite get it at the time. But a few episodes later, when it comes down to saving loot or winning the Aether Spark, Chandra realizes what Nissa meant. Doing the right thing is more important. They don't always get along, and they don't always see eye to eye on things. That's the nature of any relationship. But they always take each other seriously, and they're always on each other's minds.
I absolutely love that scene, and a huge part of what fans, us included, love about your writing is how you're able to give this realistic tone to characters' relationships. Because for all we've talked about the ways that Chandra and Nissa can come into conflict, which, as you noted, is just a part of any relationship, they still, just like any good relationship, deeply care for each other on this really beautiful, amazing level. Chandra's passion coaxes Nissa out of her shell, and Nissa's deep ties to the natural world keep Chandra grounded, or at least Nissa does her best, because
She tries.
good Lord, she tries.
Yeah, she does her best. And even when they disagree or collide with each other, these two still care about each other. And that's what you were talking about too, Kira, is like they're obviously so in love. And that's where we get moments like the one pictured on this promo card, where Chandra lets her hot-headedness cool down and shares a genuinely touching moment with Nissa.
It's a very sweet moment for these two. And when so much of Magic is about battling, it's just nice that we have cards like this to celebrate the lighter moments.
So fans of Magic Story have celebrated the complexity of these two's relationship, the ways they come together to become something totally new. We even see a bit of that in our deck list. So a lot of Nissa cards, or cards that show Nissa, are focused on ramping. You're deepening your roots and strengthening your connection to the land with Path of the Animist, or Nissa, who shakes the world. So by growing your connection to nature, you, meaning the player, can harness the full power of these high-cost Chandra spells. And maybe that's a massive sorcery like the aforementioned Full Throttle, or a planeswalker like Chandra, Hope's Beacon.
Hope's Beacon is incredible. I love that you can see tears streaking down her face in the art. It really captures all that she's going through in that moment. My personal favorite Chandra is here too, Awakened Inferno. What a great way to wear people down. Also, love that like all sapphic women, Nissa and Chandra have adopted a cat. Look at Scythe Cat Cub. What a cutie. And Attune with the Aether is one of my favorite pieces of Nissa art, and such a good moment for them too. Let's not forget Open the Way, another key part of their story.
One of my favorites. Yeah.
Yes. I love when mechanics and story come together. That's been one of my favorite things about the Pride event, is seeing people share the way two cards or two characters can interact with each other. And this is also a great excuse to use the Pride Across the Multiverse version of Collective Voyage, which shows these two on Avishkar. Now, we also included the Soul Ring and Heartbeat of Spring from that drop, because yay, more ramp, and last year's Chromatic Lantern promo card, because our show writer would be very disappointed if we did not mention Nico.
And so this actually takes us from the realm of your writing work to your current narrative design work. So Chandra and Nissa have an established suite of abilities, both in the narrative and in the game. And so Chandra is known for, of course, pyromancy, and her cards tend to deal damage or enhance your spells. This makes a Chandra card feel different from, say, Koth or Sarkhan or a Jaya card.
Yeah. And Nissa, being an animist with a connection to the land, has plenty of cards that increase your mana output while turning your lands into creatures. I'll also say that we thought about including Phyrexian Nissa, but her ability just didn't really work with the amount of non-forest this deck runs. Plus, it honestly just felt cruel.
Yeah, it felt a little on the nose. Little too soon. Little too soon.
It's always going to be too soon.
It's too soon. So now, Kira, you're working with game designers, artists, and your fellow narrative designers, of course, on the development of new stories and cards. So let's say a new Chandra card comes across your desk. I'm curious, what's your role in making sure that that card feels like, well, Chandra?
That's a very cool question. I'm always excited to talk about my job, and I'll tell you a secret. The secret is that by the time a Chandra card comes to my desk, the team has already done a lot of thinking about what she's doing. The narrative lead and art director work together to determine the tone of the set. The story team and narrative lead have discussed what she's doing there and why. The game design team has already decided what the card does. As a team, we've gone through the whole card set and decided what each card should feature, which moments are being illustrated. My job is making sure that all of that is executed properly on the card and giving feedback along the way. We have a lot of discussions about those sorts of things, and we do a lot of testing as well. I take all of that and I figure out how to describe it to the artist. Which parts are important in this moment, what's vital to see, and how can we express what the card does in the art. Also, keeping it off previous Chandra cards, which is its own adventure. And once I submit the art description, it's reviewed by our leads and other teams. Then cool art comes in, which is the best part. I look it over and make sure it's expressing all of the things that we want, offer feedback, that sort of thing. Maybe the artist forgot her goggles, or she's not wearing the right costume, or we're looking for a more menacing feel.
I love that. That sounds really fun. Can I do your job one day?
It's a very fun job. I'm extremely fortunate.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm extremely biased because you've written some of my favorite stories, but I think the Magic Multiverse is truly better for having you as a writer. And the entire game of Magic is lucky to have you as a full-fledged designer. So just welcome. I'm so glad you're part of the team now.
And one thing we really want to emphasize is just how impactful you have been over the past few years for contemporary Magic story. I mean, for example, you wrote the main story of Aether Drift and Secrets of Strixhaven, both of which heavily involve Chandra and Nissa. And even if you didn't write the story for Reality Fracture, the way you've passed that baton has really teed up this massive moment in Magic's narrative.
Which is part of why we love Magic Story and doing this podcast. Tying together these wonderful ideas that come from different creatives, both inside and outside of Wizards, is a monumental task. Are there any folks you can remember as being particularly insightful when writing these stories about Chandra and Nissa?
I mean, for sure, the whole story team. I wouldn't be here without them. Roy Graham, Jay Natalie, and Peter Baravesh have all been incredible partners in this journey. And I mean, the narrative design team have always been incredible, and I'm so lucky to see them every day now. Emily, Neil, Lauren, Maris, Laurel, DK, Amanda, and Chris. I'd also like to shout out some of my fellow writers. I wouldn't be here without them either. Grace Fong, Nikki Drayden, Miguel Lopez, Shauna McGuire, and Allison Lurs have all done such amazing work.
Kira, thank you so much again for joining us to talk about some of our favorite characters here with Chandra and Nissa. And we're going to finish sleeving up this Chandra and Nissa deck and try and grab a game with you if you're free. And listeners, you can bring your favorite partner pair to your local game store at Magic Presents Pride. This event runs from June 5th through the 14th at participating local game stores. Remember, you'll receive this foil Gilded Lotus promo card and enamel pin while supplies last. So contact your local game store for more details because you're going to want to pick these up.
Thank you for joining us for this special Pride celebration. We'll be back soon, maybe sooner than you think, to talk more about the multiverse we love. Until then, we hope you celebrate what you love and who you love this Pride Month. Have a magical Pride.